Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this new webinar on InvestEU. Today we will focus on the sustainability guarantee. Most of you have seen probably the use case document, which explains exactly what we expect to see under the sustainability guarantee. This document might be seen as a complex document, and we acknowledge this, and together with our colleague from EIB advisory, our colleague from management and the commission, we have developed a web tool to help you to assess whether loan, a project, an SME is eligible under this sustainability guarantee. So the session of today will go into the detail. We will review each and every criteria to help you out when looking at sustainable projects. Before we start and before I give the floor to Raluca, I would like to thank my colleagues that have put this presentation together. I would like to thank EIB advisory, the colleague from management, which have worked a lot to make this happening today. I also want to remind you that the web tool is one element, but we have also other elements to help you out. You have access to your EIF relationship manager if you have questions on eligibility criteria. You have access to EIB advisory in case you have questions on the web tool. So we are there to help you out, and do not hesitate, please, to ask questions either in this forum or after this forum via either email or via a contact with your relationship manager. So I wish you a very good session, and please do not hesitate to come back to us in case you have any question on this document. I'll give you the floor, Raluca, and I wish you a good session to all.
Thank you, Vincent. Good. So I guess we can start. Good morning, and thank you very much for your participation. We are very enthusiastic to see so much interest in our online webinars, and we hope that each one of you will find something interesting and useful during today's session. My name is Raluca Stanciu, and together with my colleagues, we plan to cover today the sustainability guarantee product that the European Investment Fund is offering under the umbrella of InvestEU. And given that we received a high number of expression of interest for this product, our intention today is to provide, as Vincent was saying already, more support in understanding what is eligible under this new product and what documents or tools can be used to check eligibility. And if we can move to the agenda, Jorge, you can advance a bit on the slides. Thank you. After a brief introduction on the product, we will walk you through the eligibility criteria that are specific for this guarantee, one by one, exemplifying also how the assessment should be performed with the help of the eligibility web tool. We will not get into too many details on the structure of the product and other details that are well similar with other InvestEU product specificities, but we will basically cover only the definition of sustainability used by the product. For the full list of eligibility, such as like maximum loan amounts, minimum maturities, or restricted sectors, and so on, please use the term sheet documentation that is published on the website in the context of the call of expression of interest. We will also reserve a bit of time at the end of the webinar to answer some of your questions, so please feel free to use the chat box for that. it would be good if you could address your questions to the full audience. It will help also managing the questions at the end. We will answer some of your questions at the end of the session, and the remaining ones will be addressed in a Q&A document to be provided to all participants. You will also receive the presentation, so don't worry about that. So I guess we can already start with the overview. Good. As you are all aware, the Sustainability Guarantee is a new product that EIF is offering under the InvestEU, being the first pan-EU guarantee product designed to support the green transitions of SMEs, small mid-caps, natural persons, and housing associations. Now, given the particular focus of this guarantee, the eligibility criteria of the product is designed in the spirit of the EU taxonomy and adapted to the targeted segments. And also, given that the novelty of the product, not only for the EIF, but also for the SME lending market in general, the product is benefiting from advisory services support. We have today in the webinar our colleagues from the EIB Advisory Hub who will exemplify through practical examples the utility of the eligibility web tool that was specially designed for the sustainability guarantee. And apart from the tool, as part of the advisory support, EIF aims to organize periodical webinars to further support financial intermediaries in implementing the product. So indeed, there will be additional support to be offered, and of course, as Vincent was mentioning, you will be in contact with all the relationship managers to address any questions or to ask for help whenever it's needed. Now, one more important aspect to be mentioned is that the sustainability guarantee is contributing to the EIB group ambition as the EU climate bank. And this means that 30% of the InvestEU financing at the EIB group level will contribute to climate action and environmental sustainability. In the same time, the sustainability guarantee contributes to the climate objectives of the InvestEU program. So for these reasons, we aim to focus on certain criteria that are targeting directly the climate change mitigation and the climate change adaptation. And this target will be transposed in our guarantee agreements. But more on this will come later on in the presentation. But just for you to be aware that we will focus more on certain criteria that are more relevant for the product, and this will be flagged in the guarantee agreements as well. Now you will see also that our products that our product has two types of eligibility criteria that are listed in green on the slide. The sustainable enterprise criteria, where the FI will assess the eligibility by looking at the activity of the SME, and the sustainable investment criteria, for which the assessment is done for the investment to be covered by the transaction. And we will present each type today with plenty of examples to ensure a better understanding on both. Now, if we move to the next slide, just to get back a bit to the targeted segments, as mentioned, the product can cover SMEs, small mid-caps, natural persons, and housing associations. However, the eligible segments are not treated the same in terms of eligibility, and this means that not all the eligibility criteria are available for natural persons and housing associations, and the ones that are available are adapted to better capture the relevant activities. Now, across the presentation today, you will see the little house icon that it showed on the slide as well, flagging what criteria are applicable for natural persons and housing associations. We will mention as well during the presentation all the differences, and my colleague Roman from the Advisory Hub will also exemplify how the eligibility tool is reflecting these differences. But just for you to be aware again that we will treat these differences in detail. Now, if we move to the next slide, I'll briefly describe how the eligibility criteria is presented in different documents that are governing the product. Given that the topic of sustainability it's always advancing, EIM aims to be able to adapt the eligibility criteria when needed and to align to the market standards. And for this, we really need the flexibility, and this flexibility it's reflected in the governance of the product. Now, first, we have, of course, the InvestEU guarantee agreement that covers the high-level eligibility criteria, providing the minimum level of detail and setting the areas of sustainability that the product is targeting. This high-level eligibility criteria is transposed in the term sheet of the product that it's provided in the context of the open call of expression of interest, and also in the guarantee agreements to be signed with our FIs. Now, in order to keep the much needed flexibility and provide enough details on the expected eligibility criteria, EIF has published a document called the use case document, on which most of you are already familiar with already. That it's providing in-depth eligibility requirements and details about relevant thresholds or indicators, benchmarks, and so on. What it's important to know is that this document has binding requirements and will be monitored, mentioned in the guarantee agreements signed with the FIs. So it's linked to the guarantee agreements. And in case of any changes to the eligibility criteria, EIF will publish additional versions of the use case document and will inform all the financial intermediaries about the availability of such an update. And from that moment going forward, the financial intermediaries are expected to acknowledge and agree to apply the new version. Now, in addition to the use case document, which is, as I said, the most important document that determines the eligibility criteria of the product, I was mentioning that we will also launch an eligibility web tool. And this tool will reflect the same level of information as the use case document, but its purpose is to support the eligibility assessment. And the tool will always reflect the latest version of the use case document. And now, just before we jump to the next slide, I wanted to mention that for all countries where the fund, the European Investment Fund, is implementing the sustainability guarantee with additional support from the member state compartment, being RRF budget or any other member state budget, there might be additional eligibility conditions, and all these additional requirements will be reflected in the use case document and also will be flagged somehow on the tool. And of course, all these requirements will be stipulated in the guarantee agreements. But just for you to be aware that today's webinar is only covering the InvestEU sustainability guarantee under the EU compartment. So we will not discuss any additional potential requirements. For this, you'll need to stay in touch with your relationship managers, and for sure you'll be informed on any other additional considerations. Now, if we can move to the next one. Thank you. Good. So just before I give the floor to my colleague Roman from the Advisory Hub, I would like to stress just a couple of remarks on the relationship between the use case document and the eligibility or eligibility web tool, just for you to have sort of an idea and an overall overview on how the two instruments should work. As mentioned, the use case document can suffer changes. So it is expected that new versions of the document will be made available. And as I said, the tool will always reflect the latest version. The FI is expected to implement and follow the use case document, which is a mandatory document. The purpose of the tool is to support the assessment of the eligibility, and it is highly recommended that the FIs and also the final beneficiaries will use it. However, it's not necessarily mandatory. As you will see further in the examples that my colleagues will provide, given the level of complexity of the criteria that it's being assessed, for some criteria, the tool is more useful, and for others, the tool is just transposing in a more user-friendly manner the information provided in the use case document. Also, you will see across the use case document, the tool, and also during today's webinar, that each criteria is presented from 3 different angles. First, we always mention what it's eligible, then we list how the eligibility needs to be documented, and then when the assessment needs to be done. So please note that for each criteria, these 3 angles can be different. So make sure you always check what it's applicable for each case. Good, so now I'll leave the floor to Roman to briefly introduce the tool, and then we start with the eligibility sections.
Thank you, Raluca. If you could please confirm that with a shake of the head, you can hear me well. That's perfect. Thank you, everybody, for being here today. I see we have a really nice showing, a lot of participants, so that's excellent. Thank you to EIF colleagues for having me and for working with us over the number of months to prepare the web tool for the Sustainability Guarantee product. My name is Roman Dojčak. I work in EIB Advisory Services, and I will try to now show all the participants a little bit the tool, the way we developed it, the way it should function, the way it can be used, and hopefully make your lives as financial intermediaries easier when implementing the Sustainability Guarantee tool. I would like to say that the tool is part of a larger Green Gateway advisory initiative, which is funded by the European Investment Advisory Hub. And so if there are colleagues from the Commission, I would like to thank them as well, because without the support of the Commission and of the Advisory Hub, the tool would not be existing. The tool, like already said by Raluca, is fully in line with the use case document. As the use case document will change in time, so will the web tool. So you don't need to worry about any discrepancies. There are different functionalities that the tool provides for different measures. And as we will go into the live demonstration in a few minutes time, you will see that different aspects of the web tool can give you different service, and you will understand much better what I mean by that when we go into it live. So with that, back over to EIF colleagues before we then go into other aspects. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Raluca, Roman. Let's start tackling then the sustainability guarantee eligibility criteria. And the first one that we have is the sustainable enterprise criteria. You will see that this criteria is subdivided into different possibilities or different options. We have put a summary on this slide, and we will go briefly one by one to clarify what are the criteria to be complied with in order to be for an SME to be eligible. Of course, this will be further developed and shown, and now we will show them in the web tool as well. But we will proceed with explaining each and every one of them a little bit more in detail, so everyone can have a good overview of those 6 possibilities. So the first one, and the first criteria on in terms of sustainable enterprise would be companies that have been awarded a clean tech or a green prize, a grant or funding from a national institution, an EU institution, from a predefined list. So this is a list that it's an attachment. It's in attachment to the use case document that can be consulted, and it contains a list of institutions that are eligible for each and every country. So we hope that this is very clear. So who's eligible in this case would be companies that have been awarded these prizes or have received a grant of funding under the European Innovation Council Green Deal. Also projects that were judged to receive funding but did not get it due to budget limitations. Those would also be eligible. So this would be the first one. Secondly, we have the clean energy or climate related intellectual property rights. So in this case, it would be companies that have registered a renewable energy, clean tech, or climate related technology, such as patent or utility models or design rights. All of these would be eligible under this criterion. And in this case, it's important to notice that the purpose of the transaction of the loan or the financing, the underlying financing, and is to finance any activity that leads to the exploitation of such technology, right? So how is the eligibility confirmed for for this one? Well, there needs to be a document that states the clean tech or intellectual property right, or the patent that has been registered, just to prove it. And also it's in order to prove the eligibility, the intermediaries would need to gather self-declarations from the final recipient from the SME, from the stating that the loan is to enable the use of this technology, right? The third one would be the eco-label business. So in this case, it's companies that have registered one of the eco-labels of a predefined list that also is shown in the use case document. Typically, it would be the EMAS eco label, EU eco label, or EU organic products label. So it's again it's a predefined list that can be consulted in the use case document. The fourth sub-criterion would be the sustainable or green business supply chain, which is companies actually that can demonstrate that at least 90% of their revenue in the previous year or the most recent 2 months period, that's actually in one of the activities of again a predefined list, which is renewable energies, energy efficiency, zero or low emission mobility, green ICT, information and communication technologies, circular economy, water resources and pollution prevention, nature-based solutions, agriculture and forestry, or professional technical services. So again, the company's main activity needs to fall into one of the specified green activities, and 90% of the revenues of the company or of its turnover needs to come from one of these activities. On fifth place, we have the sustainable or green business model. This would be for companies that have incorporated in its business model green practices that pursue the transition to green or sustainable economy. These include investments, processes, and technologies with climate or environmental impact. and there are some thresholds to take into consideration also that are contained in more detail in the use case document. So typically those thresholds are that over a period of 5 years, the previous 5 years, there's a reduction of carbon or environmental footprint. It could be a reduction in greenhouse gas emissions, or a decrease in energy consumption, or a decrease of use of water per unit of output, or reduction in air emissions of 20%. So those are available to be more specifically checked in the use case document. And lastly, there is the sub-criterion number 6, which is the environmentally certified enterprise. And this would be for companies that have received an environmental certificate standard from a predefined list as well. So it's ISO the 50001 or 50004, or the Eco Management and Audit Scheme, the EMAS certification. So this would be also eligible in terms of sustainable enterprise. So this is a short summary of the 6 sub-criteria. Again, more details in the use case document and also in the web tool, and will be made available shortly. And then let's go back to Roman, our colleague Roman in the advisory hub, that maybe can show us a couple of these examples more in detail in the web tool and maybe the use case document.
Indeed, thank you, Diego. You are now seeing the landing page of the EIF Sustainability Guarantee tool. The URL address is the address to the testing version, the unofficial testing version of the website. In the matter of next couple of weeks, definitely this month, we will be launching the tool live, and once that happens, the URL address will look something like this, but you will receive proper communication about the live official URL address of the web tool once it is alive. So don't worry about that. As far as the look, the functionalities, and the user journey of the official live version of the tool, it will be identical to what you will be seeing today. So this is why we're here today, to show you how it's going to look, and in the next hopefully a couple of weeks you will receive a link and can start playing around. Obviously, we will welcome any feedback you may have either today in the Q&A about the tool, but as we go forward in time, you may have questions, you may have suggestions for improvements about the tool, and we will absolutely appreciate any feedback of such nature. So please do not hesitate. On the landing page, you see some information about the tool and what is used for. Before we dive into the actual assessment and demonstration of the specific green enterprise criteria that Diego was taking us through, you also see on the landing page the frequently asked questions, all kinds of essential information about the tool, and at the bottom of it you will also see information about who you can contact and the email addresses that you can use in order to ask questions either about the Sustainability Guarantee portfolio product itself, or about the or about this web tool as well. So now in order to show you the green enterprise criteria, let's assume that, I mean, obviously it's green enterprise criteria, so it's not applicable to natural persons and housing associations. And for that reason, one will click on SME or small mid-cap as a potential beneficiary. And then here you have the enterprise criteria. We will go to the sustainable investment criteria in a little bit later. Once clicking on the sustainable enterprise, you will see, you will find the 6 criteria categories. Let's maybe show just a couple of them now. So price and public support previously received. Upon clicking on this box, the user is taken to the next stage where you see all of, and I will maybe zoom out a little bit so that you can maybe have a better view. You will here see all the eligible and accepted public support award bodies. Then you can scroll through. Obviously, a lot of them are not going to be relevant to the specific needs of your financial institution. So let's assume you are interested in awards related only to renewables. So you will start typing and you will get the renewable related awarding bodies. Let's say you are interested only in the ones that are applicable for Italy. So you will start typing Italy and you will get those, etc. So this is what the tool will do for you. Once you click on a particular award, you will get just a description about how the eligibility must be confirmed, what type of documents are needed, and information about when the assessment should be made. Now let's go back. Let's maybe look also at sustainable/green business and supply chains. Here at the very top, you see the information from the use case document, which tells you that the final recipient can be eligible based on this criterion if 90% of the turnover in the last 12-month period, most recent 12-month period, comes from one of the green activities as defined by the use case document. And here are the green activities. Once you click on any particular one, you will get the information from the use case document. So you don't have to keep going to the PDF file back and forth. You can have it here in a hopefully a bit more user-friendly nature. At the bottom, again, you see the information about how the eligibility can be confirmed and when that should be done. I think at this stage, I will stop and give floor back to my EIF colleagues, and then I will take you through the other sections of the web tool in a little bit.
Thank you, Roman. I'll take over from here. Good morning, everyone, from my side as well. My name is Jana Pătrașcu. I will guide you through the beginning of the eligibility criteria related to the sustainable investments. So from this point onwards, you will see that the eligibility criteria are related to sustainable and green investments. Basically, from this category on, the eligibility criteria will be related to the purpose of the final recipient transaction and not to the type of the final recipient. We have designed several categories, and the first category that we will talk about now is the climate change mitigation category. Under the climate change mitigation, here you will see that we have 6 eligibility criteria. The eligibility criteria relate to renewable energy, to green and energy efficiency buildings for both commercial and residential. Then we will have the industrial energy efficiency, the low and zero emission mobility, and the green ICT. As Raluca was telling you at the beginning, you will see that for some of the eligibility criteria, we have the little house, the icon on the right-hand side. This shows that for those eligibility, you will have also the possibility to give debt financing to natural persons and housing associations. They are usually a subset, but we can talk about them when we move forward. If we go to the next slide, please. The renewable energy. So the eligibility criteria states that here we have as eligible investment in renewable energy projects, the productions and or transmission of renewable energy, electricity, storage solutions, and renewable energy heating and or cooling systems. Also manufacturing and components for renewable energy are eligible. We have here 4 big categories of eligible renewable energy type. So basically we have the solar, the ocean and the wind. For these three, you will see in the use case document that we have no threshold. So all the equipments and systems that are within these categories of renewable energy are eligible. Then the fourth category is the geothermal. Here we do have a threshold, however, for the plants. So the plants need to be operating at a maximum 100 grams CO2 per kilowatt hour during the life cycle emissions. The type of investment, so for these categories, the type of investments can be devices, systems, and components. But then it's not only those. We also have the installation, the transmission, the storage, manufacturing, and also the ancillary. For the devices, so when we say devices, here you have a whole range. So for example, in the case of solar, we talk about solar panels, we talk about solar thermal heating, and all the ancillary components. Then when we are talking about devices in the ocean, renewable energy, here you will see, and all this that I'm saying, you will see in the use case document. So it's wave or tidal turbines. Then in the case of wind energy, we have the wind turbines. So, and then as I said, that we have also this transmission, storage, and manufacturing, where basically we are talking about storage solutions like mini grids, smart grids, then also infrastructures that help the generation of renewable electricity, and also equipment that helps enabling the development of renewable energy sources. Maybe it would be worthwhile, because this slide is very very schematic on what we have in the use case, and if we can move just a bit to the eligibility criteria from the use case, and just to guide you through how to read a bit and how to see all this in the use case document. If you can please go to it, it's page 10, I think. So you will see that in the first part you have the eligibility criteria, where so the eligibility criteria will be the same across. So in the term sheets in your contracts, and then we have the what section. So what is eligible, and here we describe a bit more, and then you can see the eligible renewable energy type. And so, as I was saying, we have the solar energy, and here we have on the left-hand side the big categories, and then on the right-hand side the eligible investment examples. So some examples, and we try to be as exhaustive as possible. Then under the ocean energy, again, you will have the big category on the left-hand side and the eligible investment examples. Then the same, so the same for each and every of the eligibility. Apart from this, so we have the four categories of renewable energy. Then you will see that we have, if we can go a bit below, so you have here the renewable energy transmission, distribution, and storage solutions. And here you see the equipment, the infrastructure for the generation of renewable energies, the mini grids. You will see the equipment that enables renewable energy resources, and again with plenty of examples, so that it's a bit more straightforward in understanding what we are what we have as eligible. And then we also have the manufacturing of renewable energy and key components. What is important to know that also ancillary activities to these investments are eligible. And then when we talk about how the eligibility assessment is done, here you will see the separation between the eligibility criteria for SMEs and small mid caps, and the eligibility checks for the natural persons and housing association. And we go across the first off again across the devices for the type of energy, and we say whether there's a threshold requirement or not. So as I was saying, for solar, ocean, wind, we don't have threshold requirements, and you can see that this is exemplified. It's explained in the use case, and then in the case of geothermal, we have this threshold for the plants. Then when it comes to how the check is done. Here you will see, and it's not only here, it's also across other eligibility criteria. We talk about the PDF report technical documentation. Our colleague Roman will show you when he will exemplify in the tool that basically the sustainability guarantee tool has this possibility to generate in many of the cases where we talk about climate change mitigations, this PDF report tool. The PDF report tool is generated once the assessment is made and an investment is eligible, and this document can be used to put that file to demonstrate the eligibility check. Apart from this, we also have the possibility to use as eligibility check the description of investment in the cases in which we do not have thresholds. And we will always need the control of use of funds together with legal covenants. So this is the let's say how to read the use case when it comes to the eligibility checks. Then if we go a bit below, below please. Then you will have also this big category where we talk about the renewable energy transmission, distribution, and storage solutions. So here we are not talking about these devices specific to a certain type of renewable energy. And here you will have this what we call the other technical documentation with the key technical data. So basically, it needs this technical documentation will need to show that through the data that it is eligible according to the use case. And then again, we talk about the control of use of funds with the legal covenants. At the beginning of the use case, maybe it's worthwhile introducing now, you will have definitions. We will not move for the beginning. Or we can stay here. But just to say that at the beginning of the use case, you will have the definitions for what other technical documentation means, what the PDF report means, and also throughout the tool. The tool will also have very clearly stated for each and every category, for each and every eligibility, what are the checks that need to be done. And then the last thing is with regards to when such verification needs to be done. So we have at signature the purpose of so this is exactly as it was for other programs that we had. So at signatures, you will need to have in the contract the purpose of the final recipient transactions and the related legal covenants to make sure that the investment is made in an eligible area. And then prior to disbursement, to each disbursement, there needs to be the technical documentation or the control of use of funds. So basically, you will have the control of use of funds to make sure that the disbursement is made toward the investment that is in the contract. Next slide, please. Now we move to green and energy efficient buildings. In the green and energy efficient buildings, you will see that we have two big categories. So we have the commercial buildings and the residential buildings. The way this eligibility criteria is structured is that basically we have the let's say the major renovation and the standardized measures. We have put together a list of standardized measures in order to make it as easy as possible to have the investments in this category. So when we talk about renovation of commercial buildings, here we have the major renovations where we have, so first off, it's either that the result of such renovation is aimed at increasing by at least one notch the minimum EPC level, or And in any case, not below the reaching a minimum B level. And then the other category possible is that where the savings in the primary energy demand is of at least 30% compared to the baseline performance before the renovation. Again, so as I was saying, under the renovation, we have also the eligible standardized list, which I will discuss about later on in the slides. And then under the commercial buildings eligibility criteria, we also have the construction of buildings eligible, but the eligibility that it needs to comply with is that the primary energy demand of the new building is of at least 10% lower than the threshold set for near zero buildings, and that the maximum building area upon completion is of 5,000 square meters. Again, here we will have ancillary type of eligible investments. So we have the installation services and the related expenses are eligible, also technical consultations, also accredited energy audits, building performance assessments, the energy management services, and the energy performance contracts. So all these are eligible to be included in the final recipient transactions. When we come again, we will say how this eligibility is verified. So in the case of the renovation and the construction, so we have an ex-ante technical documentation, such as we give some examples, so like an energy performance certificate, an an external energy audit, or an external technical assessment opinion. In each case, it needs to be performed by an independent expert or supplier. And again, we talk about the control of use of funds with the legal covenants. For the ancillary activities, the verification is done through documents that will provide the information on the services to be provided, and again, the control of use of funds. When we talk about when this assessment needs to be done, so at signatures, you will have the purpose and the related legal covenants, and then prior to disbursement, you need to make sure that you have you control where the funds are going. We will not move to the use case in this case, at least because it's fairly straightforward. So you will see that the eligibility is again, so the numbering for each and every eligibility is replicated between the use case document and what you see here. And also in the tool, you will see that this numbering was kept so that it's fairly easy to navigate and to know where which eligibility criteria you are looking at. And then you have in the use case document, you have these sections exactly like this explained. So what is eligible, how is the eligibility assessed, and then when such as eligibility needs to be assessed. If you can please move to the next slide. Then we have the residential. So here it's more or less the same, but we are talking about residential buildings. The only big difference is that we only have renovation, so we don't have construction in this case. And again, for the renovation of residential buildings, where we need to make sure that the result of such renovation is aimed at receiving an energy performance certificate of at least B level, and it needs to be one notch improvement. And then the second is to have the primary energy demand that is of at least 30%. So the savings are at least 30% compared to the baseline performance before the renovation. And we have again the list of standardized measures. In the ancillary type of investments are the same, and you will see that also in the use case document. And then when we talk about the how and when, it's pretty much the same that I was telling you about in the case of commercial. If we can move to the next slide, please. So here we have the list of standardized energy efficiency measures. These are for the two eligibility criteria for 2.2, which are the energy efficiency buildings for commercials, and 2.3 energy efficiency buildings residential. Again, here we try to be a bit schematic on what is eligible so that we understand the big categories, and then we'll also I'll try to help you and guide you a bit through the use case document. So we have first the category of installation measures, and under the installation measures we have walls, so wall insulation, roofs, lofts. Then we have the energy efficiency doors and energy efficiency windows, windows. Then the next big category is the heating and cooling measures, and here we have what we call the HVAC measures. So basically we have heating, ventilation, and air conditioning, plus the thermostat, the sound thermostats, and heat metering. Then you have a category that is called other measures, where we have basically the lighting, the energy efficiency lighting, and the building measures, where here we have for the building, we have the building automation and control systems. This is eligible only for the commercial buildings, and it is highlighted in the use case document as well. And then we have the facade and roofing elements. When we talk about the first two big categories, so when we talk about insulation measures and heating and cooling measures, here you will see in the use case document that basically we have split the eligibility into, let's say, two main eligibilities. So it's either that these measures are compliant with the Energy Performance Building Directive and the Eco-Design Directive, or these measures, they are complying with minimum thresholds that are set out in the use case. So you will see that we have minimum thresholds. For example, in the case of Windows, minimum U value. So these are technical parameters that such investments, such measures need to comply with. Or when we talk about heating and ventilations, we have, so in the thresholds, you will see that in some of the cases, we are requiring that these appliances are in the highest two categories, for energy efficiency, as they are labeled within the EU. Maybe, and just to finish here, so again, we have the technical and the professional activities that are connected to these measures. They are eligible. Maybe if we can look a bit also in the use case, so because it's a bit more complicated there, in the sense that it's not so schematic as here, so that we were trying to be as explanatory as possible. So here you will see, so under 222, this is the number, so the investment in renovation of commercial buildings. But then you will see that in the other categories, for example, in residential, we will reference to these big categories. So under the standardized eligible measures, you have the first big categories, where we say that installation of individuals measures, and here we have the big categories that I was mentioning. So basically it's the insulation, the window and door replacement, the heating, ventilation and air conditioning equipment, the HVAC, and then replacement of boilers and stoves. Of course, it should never be based on fossil fuels. And for these measures, you can see here that it says that it needs to comply with the minimum requirements set out in the Energy Performance Building Directive and in the Eco-Design Directive. Then some of these measures can be seen also in the following category. So in under B, where we say that, if we can move a bit lower. Thank you. So here we have again the category. So we have the insulation measures. So the first of you will see that we are talking about walls, roofs. We talk also about green roofs, but this needs to be in conjunction. You will see them very well exemplified also in the tool. It needs to be in conjunctions with the insulation with the wall insulation, where we have, and here we have a minimum U value that needs to be such insulation needs to be compliant with. Then we have the energy efficient windows, where again we have a minimum U value. So these are technical parameters that need to be complied with. Then the next one, we're talking about the energy efficient doors. With the energy efficient doors here, we have only the energy performance building directive compliance. Again, then we are talking about we look at the heating and cooling measures, and here you see exactly what I was saying, so that it needs to be rated in the highest to significantly populated classes of the energy efficiency. So here we're talking about heating, ventilation, and air conditioning. Then we have the category on the zone thermostats and smart thermostats, and then the products for heat metering. The next category, you will see the building measures that I was saying. So it's the automation of buildings, which is eligible for the SMEs, and then the facade and roofing elements, and the other measures where we have the lighting. Again, in the case of lighting, we have this that they need to be subject to the EU energy labeling rules, and they need to be in the highest to significantly populated classes of energy efficiency. Maybe if we can move forward back to the slides, please. Thank you. And the next slide. Here, we have again the same categories with how the verification is done and when the verification is done. On the how, the very nice element that Roman will show you in the tool is that for these standardized measures, we have quite a number of the measures. They are in the tool. The tool can make an assessment based on the user input, and it can be fairly easy to see what is eligible with the tool. So you make the assessment, and the tool will return whether such an investment is eligible, and this will be showcased by Roman later on after we finish with explaining the climate change mitigation category of investments. Then if it's not a PDF report, then it can be done through technical documentation with the technical parameters where applicable and as applicable. Or again, the description of the investment. If we don't have any technical parameters, then it can be the description of the investment. In the use case document, you have very clearly specified how this is done for each and every category. And then again, we have the control of use of funds together with legal covenants. And when it comes to when such verification needs to be done, again, we are talking about that signatures for the purpose and the legal covenants. And then prior to disbursement, you will need as advice to make sure that the dispersed funds go to whom, so that the final recipients will come with the related documentation, so that the disbursement is done based on documentary evidence. On the how the eligibility assessment is made, you will see, because we have the numbering, so you will see for eligibility, so these 221 and 223 are basically the major renovations, and then you have the documents that I was telling you about. And then for the standardized measures, you have, so what are they? So you have the PDF that the tool will generate, or other technical documentations, and then also for the ancillary. And if you can just move a bit lower with the when, again, you have the explanation in detail on when and what you need to have. And with this, I thank you, and I pass it on to Raluca for the next eligibility.
Thank you, Diana. Also, I would like to thank to all the participants that are very active on the chat box. As mentioned at the beginning, please send all your questions, maybe addressed to all participants. It is a bit easier for us to handle them later on, but yeah, keep them coming. It's very interesting to see. Good, thank you, Jorge. We can have a look now at the industrial energy efficiency measure. Here we have 3 sub-measures that are considered eligible. And the first one is just a transposition of the criteria that it's referring to the list of standardized business renovation measures or equipment that were used for the green energy efficient certified commercial buildings. So the one that Diana was just presenting a couple of minutes ago, meaning that under this criteria, the product covers any investments related to eligible equipment for insulation, heating, cooling equipment, building measures, and so on, that are of course applicable to the industrial energy efficiency area. And in addition to this, under this sub-measure, the product covers also investments related to manufacturing of different equipments or products that are otherwise considered eligible under the energy efficiency measures that were described before. So just as an example, the criteria covers investments in manufacturing of household appliances, energy efficient windows or doors or walls, and so on, insulation products, and so on. So basically, this sub-criteria is focused more on the manufacturing part of the eligible equipment and products. And given the high level of expertise that the SMEs need to build in the area of industrial energy efficiency, this criteria also covers additional costs with technical consultants, energy audits, building performance assessments, energy management, and so on. And just to jump to the second sub-measure, this one it's referring to the investments in productions and installation of technologies that will reduce significantly the energy consumption of or the greenhouse gas emissions. And here we include investments in replacing existing technology, where and when we can prove a reduction in energy use or greenhouse gas emissions of a minimum 30%. So for this, the use case offers plenty of examples where it can be applicable, not only in the pure industrial energy efficiency area, but also in the agriculture. Like, for example, modernization of existing irrigation networks involving energy savings of minimum 30%. And you will see that, at least on the tool, we try to link this with the agricultural criteria, just because there are some links between the two criteria, and for that reason, it's a bit easier to follow the two of them working together. And the last submeasure refers to research, development, and innovation that supports a significant reduction of greenhouse gas emissions compared with current practices. Well, when it comes to the assessment and how the assessment shall be done in order to prove the eligibility, it depends, of course, on the submeasure that it's used during the assessment. And for some submeasures, the eligibility web tool is performing the assessment, and this will be shown later on. For these cases, having the eligibility report issued by the tool, it's very helpful because it replaces the need to collect additional technical documentation just to prove the eligibility. And my colleague Roman will show you in a minute how this report looks like and how it is supposed to be used. But where the eligibility web tool does not perform an assessment and does not issue a report, the eligibility needs to be proven by specific technical documentation that are listed, of course, in the use case document. And maybe I'll kindly ask my colleague Jorge to switch the screen to the use case document. So yeah, in the use case document, as we mentioned before, we do list all the information that it's needed to be collected in the transaction file in order to prove that the eligibility check was performed. So around page 20, if I recall correctly, so down just on the section on how exactly. So as you see, for each submeasure, we do list exactly what documentation it's needed for the verification and also what it's needed in order to prove the control of use of funds together with the legal covenant. Similar with the criteria presented previously, the financial intermediary needs to check and document the use of funds. by using a legal covenant in the transaction agreement that will set the purpose of the financing, and also will need to collect for each disbursement a proof that the funds were spent in an eligible way. That's something that you will see across all criteria that are in the category of sustainable investments, and this is something that you will see also listed on the tool, and as we said, and you can see it already on the use case document as well. We are having a look now at the next eligibility criteria, which is referring to the low and zero emission mobility. And as shown before, this criteria is of course available for all segments covered by the product. However, it is adapted to each beneficiary. For natural persons, the guarantee covers only full electric and hydrogen fuel cell vehicles as personal and also personal mobility devices. And all these are limited to some maximum sizes and also limited to a maximum value of the vehicle in certain cases, and all these details are listed in the use case document. When it comes to the SMEs and small mid-caps, the product covers several types of transportation, as you can see them listed on the slide. When it comes to vehicles, the product covers mainly zero emission mobility vehicles. However, until December 2025, vehicles with low emission can also be considered. And by low emission, we mean a maximum of 50 grams of CO2 per kilometer. Now, in addition to this, the product covers zero, I mean, just to flag again as a matter of example, we might have further restrictions for countries where the member state compartment, such as RRF, is used. And please note that you will need to pay attention to any additional restrictions on fossil fuels in general. In addition to this, the product also covers zero emission motorbikes, heavy duty vehicles with certain limitations on size and emissions, water transportation, again with some limitations on emissions, rail infrastructure and wagons, aviation infrastructure, and zero emission small aircrafts. Personal mobility devices, very similar with what we've seen for natural persons, and other types of infrastructure dedicated to operate the eligible mobility. Now, if we move to the next slide, sorry for the slight delay. Maybe we switch the presentation later on to a different presenter that can show the slides a bit faster. Now, again, similar to previous criteria, for the submeasures where the eligibility web tool is performing the eligibility assessment and it is issuing a report, this report could replace the need of any other technical documentation. If not available, the FI is expected to collect any technical documentation that confirms the eligibility requirements. And when it comes to the proof of use of funds, it is again similar with what we've mentioned before. It is expected to be covered by a legal covenant that will set the eligible purpose of the transaction, and it will be needed to be evidenced at disbursement by proper documentation that will show the price and exactly when the disbursement needs to cover that investment. At this next criteria that it's referring to the green ICT, meaning digital solutions, tools, and equipments that will again decrease the energy consumption or pollutant emissions. The criteria covers both hardware such as green data centers and sustainability ICT, where we can prove a 30% reduction of greenhouse gas emissions or energy consumption as a result of the implementation of the solution. And just to give you some examples here, the product could cover energy efficiency, artificial intelligence, and blockchain algorithms or supercomputing. It can cover energy efficient data platforms, yeah, and so on. In addition, this criteria covers investments in smart technologies such as artificial intelligence for flexible energy distribution. And now, depending on the submeasure, in order to prove the eligibility of the product, the FI needs to collect technical documentation or a business plan to show the effect of the ICT solution on energy efficiency. On the control of use of funds, it's kind of the same idea, very similar with previous criteria. Having a legal covenant and a proof of disbursement will be sufficient. Just that I saw a question on the chat, what do we mean by legal covenant? We mean indeed a clause in the agreement that it's specifically saying what is the purpose of the loan. This is something that we saw across different business practices, so it might not mean that you will need to implement something new, but it's something that indeed will need to cover specifically the use of the purpose of the financing. And now I guess I can pass the floor to Roman to already exemplify some of the measures we presented so far and the functionalities of the tool. Roman, it's...
Katerina, are you please able to give me presenter rights, even if you're presenting the slides? Perfect, thank you. And we're back in the on the website of the EIF Sustainability Guarantee tool, and I will now take you through the other aspects and functionalities of this advisory web tool, which are now going to reflect on the use case aspects presented by Raluca and Diana in their previous interventions. So as we click on Start Assessment, we go back to the user journey split in case we want to assess an investment undertaken by a natural person / housing association or SME and small mid cap. Now, the criteria for SMEs and small mid caps are more expensive. They cover more ground. So let's just assume a case scenario where now we are going to assess a loan to be undertaken by an SME or a small mid cap. So we'll click on this part of the user journey, and then we will, instead of doing what we did in the previous part of the demonstration, we will now click on sustainable investment part of the user journey, and are now taken to possibly the most important, most interesting and valuable aspect of the EIF Sustainable Guarantee tool. So firstly, let me say that when a user visits the website for the very first time, the initial window will ask which country the user is located in. Once the user selects a country, the tool will remember the selection so that when you return to the web tool next time and next time and next time, you don't have to input that information every single time over and over again. If you made a mistake or I don't know, change the job, I don't know, and you need to change the country, this is the part of the web tool where you can click on and you can change the country if needed. You can also unclick the remember my selection, so you know it's a service which should be helpful, but if that doesn't help you, then you don't need to obviously use the selection memory function. Now you are located, or we are located in the first one of the 3-step assessment process, where we need to select an investment type. In the second step, we will specify the investment, and in the third one, we will look at the summary of the assessment results and download a report. Now, you will see below that there is quite a number of investment measures located here from various types under renewable energy category, buildings, whether commercial or industrial. You will see industrial energy efficiency, mobility, climate mitigation, resilience, sustainable use of materials, etc. Circular economy, water resources. Basically, all the investment types which you will find in the use case document, you can also find here. Now, there are different functions that different investment measures will provide you with. The boxes with investment measures, which include this type of calculator symbol, are measures where the tool will provide you with climate impact assessment functionality and eligibility assessment functionality. And we will click on that in a second. I will show you what that means. In other cases where the calculator is not located, it means that the investment measure as demonstrated in the tool will only provide you with information about how that eligibility can be assessed and what specifically needs to be assessed under the eligibility criteria. So the measures with this calculator button are, generally speaking, a bit more sophisticated and hopefully of a bit more value to you as the users. So now I will also show you that there is a search function. So let's assume you don't you look for something specific. You don't want to see all the measures. So you click on you start typing photovoltaics and you get only for the photovoltaics. Maybe you want to look for cars and then you get investment measures that are related to vehicles. Let's say, I don't know, you want to do something in the circular economy area, and then you get, as you type, you get those measures which are related thereto. So you have this search function, and we think that hopefully that will also gives you some help. And you can also do it by the categories of the use case document. So let's assume you want to go for I don't know, mobility. Then you get all the mobility measures here. And then you can add to it additional industrial EE, let's say. Here you go. There we go. Now we can also delete them. So let's go to a specific example. We click on photovoltaic systems, and this is a nice example because it's a relatively straightforward and easy. So every time at the top of the measure, you will get some information about what the measure is or what the eligibility for that measure are. Now, this is now the core of the assessment process. So first, you need to select one of the bases for the assessment. So let's assume that for this photovoltaic investment, you can do that either by the cost of the PV system, by the size of the PV system, or by power rating. Let's assume that we know the size. For example, the roof that we want to install it on is 100 meters squared, and we know that about half of it is available for the photovoltaic panels. So we will click here 50 meters squared. And since we are in a big country, specifically France, we need to specify the region, let's say Occitanie. If we are undertaking and assessing an investment in a smaller country, for example, I don't know, Slovenia or Slovakia, you usually don't need to do that because the irradiation levels don't change so much region to region. But obviously, if you're installing photovoltaics in the south or north of France, you're going to get quite different results as far as the renewable energy capacity generated. At the bottom of the input, you can also specify the cost, which will then be transported into the PDF report that you can download at the end. Let's assume that in this case, I don't know, let's say 25,000, and comment, let's say, I don't know, client ABC. Whatever may be of use to you is what you can type here. Both of these windows are optional. They are not mandatory. They are here for your use and for your benefit. If you don't need to put anything in here, if you don't want to keep that information later on, then you obviously don't need to fill it out. On the right side, you will see the eligibility status, in this case eligible. you will see the estimated impact potential from this investment measure. And you see the figures here. You also see the supporting documents that are required, and this is very much in line with the use case document. So I will not go, further into the detail here because my EIF colleagues have already, I think, covered that relatively extensively. So, but you see that the information you can find in the use case, you can find also here. And at the end, when should the assessment be made? Also here, you can you use the your cursor to find out more about specific phrases to understand what their meaning is. Now we click on the Done button, and we are now taken to the third of the 3 steps in the assessment process. And here we have the results of the assessment for this particular investment measure. Now, we can already finish the investment process here in case that this is the only expenditure or investment item to be covered under the relevant loan transaction. But let's assume that in this particular loan transaction, the client is intending to assess other investment items as well. And for that reason, there is the Add Investment button. So you can click on that, and you are taken back to the first of the 3 steps. Now, let's say that we want to invest into wall insulation. So we will click on that. Again, at the very top, you will receive some information about the measure itself and about the eligibility criteria applicable there too. And then you need to fill in certain information in order for the engine for the calculation engine of the tool to assess whether the measure is eligible and to assess whether what the climate impact estimation is. In this case, we need to specify whether the building in which we are going to install the new windows is industrial or commercial. So let's assume it's industrial in this case. Can you confirm compliance with EPBD? Let's say we click here, no. Region, I think we set Occitanie, so we stick with that. Do we know the U values of the wall before and after? Assuming we do know, then we say what the U value was before. And this actually brings me to an interesting point that for some of the questions, you will see this I button. So you can click on that and you will receive additional information about what, in this case, EPBD is, if you're not familiar, Energy Performance of Buildings Directive. Or here you have, the U values. And this is some explanation about what U values actually are. I see that my EIF colleagues are chatting in the meantime. So if there is something for me, please jump in and let me know. Otherwise, I'll just continue. What is the U value of the wall before the installation? The typical ranges are 0.5 to 3. So let's assume that before the installation, the U value was 2. And after the renovation, the value will be 0.3. Yeah. The last few questions are the wall surface that will be insulated. Let's assume 150 meters in this case, and will the space which is enclosed by the walls, will it be actively cooled? And let's assume the answer is yes to that. Here in the upper right corner, again, you see the status of eligibility. It's eligible, and the estimated primary energy savings. Yeah. Let's assume that the U value would not be 0.3, but it would be 0.9. And this changes the eligibility, as you can see, because we neither confirm compliance with Energy Performance of Buildings Directive, and also the U value after the renovation is too high. It's not below. It's not below the threshold required by the eligibility criteria, as explained in the use case document, and for that reason, the measure is ineligible here. Yeah. We click on Done, and we are taken again to the summary page. And we see here that the first one was eligible, second one was ineligible. In case we now find out that or realize that we made a mistake, we can click on the edit button, the little pencil here, and we can redo some of the inputs that we provided for either of the measures. Yeah, let's assume we don't need to, but it is their option. Or let's assume that we want to delete it. So we click on the little garbage bin here, and we can delete it. Do we want to? In this case, no, we don't do it, but there is that option. Now let's do maybe two more measures before we move on. We did walls. Let's do a window now. Window replacement, we click on that. And again, I think the industrial building was what we confirmed previously, so let's stick with that. Do we confirm compliance with the BPD? Let's say yes, we do. Do we know the U values? In case we do, we again provide the U value as we did in the previous investment measure. Now, in some cases, this may not be possible, and we, for that reason, catered for that scenario as well. It is also possible for the tool to make the assessment of the climate impact based on other information. So first, in this case, if we don't know the U values, what is the window type? So let's say that the one that we're replacing was a single glazed window. What type of new windows will be installed? Let's say triple glazed. And what is the total area of the windows that will be replaced? Let's say, I don't know, 30 meters squared. Is the space enclosed actively cooled? Yes. And are the windows equipped with external sun protection devices? Let's say yes. In this case, again, the measure is eligible, and you get here the primary energy savings. Some of you will be asking yourself, what is this advanced mode button here in the upper right corner? If we click on that, we are then given an advanced mode function where we can provide additional information about the measure, and then we get more accurate assessment result. Now, for the purposes of EIF intermediaries implementing the sustainable guarantee portfolio product, this is not needed. The simple mode is sufficient, so you don't need to worry about the advanced mode for the purposes of eligibility checking. But if you are interested in even more accurate assessment impact results, then this is an option that is available to you, and you can use it. Again, on the right side, you will find information about the supporting documents required, when should the assessment be made, etc. We click on done. So now we have 3 investments, and you will see here also that the impact estimation results are actually a bit more expensive than what you see in the previous page. In the previous page, we show just the most important one, which is primary energy savings, but there are also CO2 savings and final energy savings, cost savings, and investment cost if it was specified. In this case, we didn't. For the renewable project, we did. So that's why it's there. Let's do one last one. And let's do personal mobility devices. So let's do apologies, that's not the one I was looking for. But let's go into the mobility section. Passenger cars and light commercial vehicles. Let's click on that. Now, in this case, we're not going to be estimating the energy savings or CO2 savings impact. This is not required in this case, but there are some information inputs that are essential in order to give you an indication whether the loan transaction for this investment type can be eligible or not. So first, we need to say whether the car which we are intending, or other type of vehicle which we are intending to finance, is fully electric or hydrogen or not. Let's assume yes, it is. And then we need to say what is the classification. In this case, let's say it's M1. For M1 vehicles, as you may have noticed in the use case, there is also an investment cost threshold. If you're buying, expensive Tesla, it's probably not going to fall under the eligibility of this financial instrument. So let's assume that the car we're planning to finance is 100K. In this case, it's ineligible, and you are provided here with the explanation of why. It must be up to 60,000. So let's assume it's not 100,000K. Let's assume it, 55,000. In this case, you get eligibility confirmation. Again, you can provide, as in the other cases, optionally investment cost 55,000 and comment, I don't know. I'm not gonna, it's okay, car. And that's it. You click on done, and you are once again taken to the summary step where now all the measures are here. Now, at the bottom, you have the disclaimer, legal disclaimer, as is quite normal for these types of websites. But you can also add additional information. So let's say final recipient ID, I don't know, 23477, and final recipient transaction on the ID 23477-001, for example. Yeah. Comment, I don't know if you need to comment, you can put it there. ABC. Obviously, again, this is not mandatory. This is optional. So if it adds value to you, then you can input this information. But I think that for the purposes of reporting to EIF, and for EIF colleagues to correct me on this, I think that for the purposes of reporting to EIF, final recipient ID and transaction ID are actually necessary. So as long as you are going to use the tool for this purpose, then I think this is actually mandatory to you. Diana?
Yeah, if I can just complement a bit here. So basically, these fields are not necessarily mandatory, but it will help you very much, and you will see once Roman will generate the Excel spreadsheet, that it will help you very much in making the connection between your reporting template with all the elements that you need to report to us with, what the tool yields with regards to this impact reporting. So I think it will be very helpful, and when you will showcase the Excel, I think it will be good to see and to understand.
Thank you so much for this clarification, Diana. And let's go to the PDF summary indeed. So we click on download the PDF summary, and you don't see it, but okay, here we go. All right. Open file, and you should now also see, while I'm still sharing the screen of my browser, you should now see the PDF report produced by the EIF Sustainability Guarantee tool. At the top, you will see information that we've provided, that the investment is taking place in France. It's related to an SME or a small mid-cap. You see the time and date of the assessment, report ID, and the version of the use case document based on which the assessment was made, for the reason that we do foresee that there may be updates to the use case document, and for that reason there will be updates in that case also to the tool itself, and for that reason we are keeping this way track of which version of the use case the assessment was based on. Now in the next section you see the summary of the eligible measures on a cumulative basis. So here you see the impact of all the measures. Yeah. The investment cost, only the investment cost which we've provided. So I think it was 55 and 25K for the car and the photovoltaic systems. So we remained silent on the cost of the window replacement. You do not see here the wall replacement, for the reason that the wall with the specification that we've provided is not eligible. For that reason, there is no reason for it to be, for that reason, there is no basis for that measure to be included here in the PDF report because it's not eligible, it cannot be financed as such, and for that reason it's not here. You will not find it here. Here then you see the relevant impact estimate figures, yeah, and then additional information for data transfer to EIF. Going on forward in the annex, you see again the assessment of individual measures. So here again you have cumulative basis. Here you have it individually. Yeah. And at the end, some information about how the tool was developed and the disclaimer once again. You see still a draft letters throughout the report because we're still finalizing a few things before launching the tool live in the next 2 weeks, hopefully. And that's about it. You also have the option to download these results in the Excel format. I will not go into it now unless Diana or other colleagues would like me to. Please feel free because then I would need to change the sharing. But essentially, what you will find in the Excel file produced by the tool is exactly the information that you will then need to report onwards from the intermediary to EIF within the normal reporting obligations. So I will stop here now. I hope I didn't go too much over time. And if my EIF colleagues would like me to look at anything else, show any other measures, I'm happy to do so. Otherwise, back over to EIF colleagues, and then I think there will be one last much shorter demonstration at the end. So back over to EIF. Thank you.
So now I'm gonna take the last part of the sustainable investment track. Well, first of all, forgive my throat, as you hear. It's not in its best shape, but hopefully it's going to be okay. So now what I'm going to cover. So Diana and Raluca covered the part of the sustainable investments, which is the climate change mitigation. And I'm going to check the other eligibility criteria, which are number 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. I'm going to start with this presentation is split in blocks. Okay, so the first block is 3, climate change adaptation, and 4, transition to a circular economy. To give you a brief view of which are these two sections. So climate change adaptation is all about climate resilience. As you know, a part of climate change is not revocable, it's not inevitable, it's inevitable, unfortunately. So we need to prepare ourselves, we need to prepare the companies, etc., to what's coming, to the part of climate change that would happen nonetheless. Okay, so that's all about 3.1, which I'm going to go into detail. Okay, and now number 4, transition to a circular economy. It's about all the measures, all the investments and companies that position themselves as front runners in circular economy types of businesses. And I'll go into detail later, but it's going to be all about the sustainable use of materials. And there are 2 sub-eligibility criteria there. It's about waste collection and recovery. It's about circular business models for product as services, okay, basically. And finally, there's a category, and if you remember, there was a category before on green ICT for renewables. In 2.6, there is a category for green ICT for circular economy. So this is the presentation. Katerina, if you can move, please. Yeah. Okay, good. So climate resilience, right? As I said, climate resilience is all about the eligibility criteria. It's all about any investment that enable a high climate resilience or of either the company or the territory against climate change and climate-related events, okay? And there is a sub-eligibility criteria in this one connected with agriculture, okay? Which are examples of eligibility criteria to be used here. Let's begin with agriculture because it's like more specific. So investments to reduce climate vulnerabilities in agriculture would be, for instance, investments into drought, flood-tolerant crops, crop storage, precision farming measures related to climate adaptation, or pressurized irrigation technologies that use sprinklers, drips, or other high-efficient drip systems. So that's all about agriculture, climate vulnerabilities in agriculture, but there is also a part of investments that would reduce climate vulnerabilities in other sectors. The list in the use case is pretty extensive. If there are no technical problems, I will show it in a minute, but I would like you to keep the idea, for instance, of this category of specific measures which are laid out in the national, regional, municipal climate change adaptation strategies or plans. You know, as you may know, in the EU there are some national, regional, etc. Climate change adaptation strategies out there, and it's important for EIF, for companies to follow those, and therefore for EIF. So now we're gonna go now into the how and the when. How is the verification made? In general, we will follow the same structure here as in the previous versions of the use case. However, as usual, in each and every investment criteria, there are specificities in the how, basically, and then the how tell us how the when changes as well. So how is this measure to be verified? So with a description of investment, which is a pure description of what the company plans to do in climate resilience, and where applicable, because as we said, there is a part of this measure connected with national, regional climate change adaptation strategies or plans. So where applicable, a reference to such climate change adaptation strategies or plans. Now, and where applicable, because it's not always applicable, the level of granularity, as I said, is better explained, is more explained in detail, both in the use case and in the web tool. But where applicable, some proof of permits may be needed, complying with the national environmental legislation. No? As we mentioned, there are some measures connected with agriculture, and those have irrigation type of permits that need to be used by the relevant authorities. Okay, and as usual, the control of use of funds, which we see everywhere. Now, on the when here and in the foregoing, it follows the same structure. No, the signature, the purpose of the fund recipient transaction, and then prior to disbursement, the control of use of funds, and where applicable, the proof of permits compliance with national environmental legislation. I don't know, Katerina, if we can switch to the use case without harm. To show a bit more in detail this one, if it's technically possible. Let's wait a couple of. Okay, cool. It's not so. Can you go to 3.1, please? I'll just switch a few of them, not all of them, because otherwise it may be like too much. Excuse me. Voila. Okay, can you zoom in, please? Great. So can you scroll down a bit, Katerina? Thanks so much. So as I said, oh, up. As I said, there are two types of eligibility criteria in this one for agri, A, one for the rest, B, C, D, etc. So for agri, as you see on the screen, those are the specific measures which I highlighted on the PowerPoint, but here are with more detail, you see. And then if you scroll a bit, Katerina, thank you. So you see here the whole plethora, stop, yeah, please. The whole plethora of other eligibility criteria connected with climate resilience. No? So, you know, there is a part of nature-based solutions. There is a part of, like F is important, no? Investments reducing the effect of climate change in cities, specifically the ones related to urban heat islands, etc. No? So these are, as you see, there is more granularity in the use case. And if you will scroll a bit further down. Yeah. Okay. For instance, you will stop. Thanks so much. So there you have no for description of in the description of investment for certain ones like 31E. So as you see, it's cross-reference. There is a reference to be made in the description of investment to the national, regional, local, city climate change adaptation strategies or plans. Okay. Good. Can we go back to the PowerPoint, please? Excuse my running nose, audience. Okay. Okay, thank you so much. So we'll stay now for a while. Now, as I said, no, we entered the block of circular economy, and there are some eligibility criteria that tackle different aspects of circular economy. No? So let's zoom in the first one, which is the sustainable use of materials. This is eligibility criteria, which actually has two sub-eligibility criteria, as you see, number 1 and number 2. Number 1 are investments that contribute to the circular economy transition that actually by allowing reduction of primary raw material use and or high use of secondary materials compared to the 16 practice. What does this mean in practice? So you see the examples there. One block of investments are those that allow for a reduction of primary raw material or higher use of secondary raw materials of a minimum of 20%, and another block are investments in manufacturing of products with a product recyclability of above 80%. So that's the first block of eligibility criteria. Okay, and then there is a second block of eligibility criteria of investments in activities that are key to net resource saving through the R's, that we call the multiple R's, the reuse, repair, refurbish, remanufacture, repurpose, or recycle. Okay, and here we basically are going to support businesses whose activity or that invest in the reuse and repair of consumer products. You have in mind maybe already what we mean with this, all this type of clothing, furniture, bicycles, etc., second-hand type of businesses. Okay, so now how do we do the verification? Without entering into much detail, as you see here, we'll need some technical documentation connected with external assessments showing the reductions of relevant thresholds, which, as you see on screen, are those thresholds on the left-hand side of the minimum 20% or the above for 80%. So we'll need a technical documentation of external verifiers verifying that. Okay, and or for criteria 2 actually, but you see that in more detail in the use case. A final recipient operating or the finance activity activity is categorized in any of the following NACE codes, and you have there a bunch of NACE codes, 4 NACE codes, about repair of computers, repair of personal and household goods, etc. So by belonging to any of these NACE codes, the eligibility is proved as well. Okay, and then the last bit, as usual, control of use of funds, and the when is about it's about as usual, signature, purpose of ownership in transaction, and prior to disbursement, the relevant technical documentation and control of use of funds. Can we move please to the next one? Okay, so now we enter the area of waste reduction. As we were discussing, all section 4 is about circular economy. So as a fundamental pillar of circular economy is waste reduction, waste collection, and waste recovery. And as you might think, there is we want to support here our investments in the segregated collection of waste, redundant products, parts, materials, and residues, etc., in order to enable recycling, reuse, recovery, or valorization. We put some pictures there, non-binding pictures. Okay, what is binding is what is written in the use case, but I think this gives you a good glimpse of what we're trying to support here. So as you see, it's basically equipment for waste collection and waste management, and then movable equipment, bins and containers, and waste collection and transport vehicles, as you see. Okay, how is the verification to be made? How is the verification to be made in this section? Again, we're gonna focus on NACE codes, similar to what we saw in the previous one. We're gonna focus on some NACE codes, which, as you see, are not exactly the same as those in the previous category. Okay. And for one NACE code, we will need to prove that minimum of the first one, waste collection, at least 50% of the waste should be recycled. Okay, and that's why we require technical documentation for such threshold to be complied with. Okay, through an external technical assessment. Okay, so these are the two key differentiating elements of the verification of this measure, and then we have the control of use of funds as usual. And then jumping into the when, we follow the same structure as all the time. Okay, can we move, please, Katerina? Okay, thank you. Now, Product as a service, reuse and sharing models that enable circular economy strategies. Here, what we have in mind are these type of service businesses, let's say, that focus on delivering products as services, okay, and that foster reuse and sharing models based inter alia on leasing, on pay-per-use, and subscription or deposit return schemes that enable circular economy. There are a number of examples in the use case of what we mean in practice, but one example would be leasing products with circular design that increase durability of products, modularity, easy disassembly, and repay. Now, how do we verify the verification? Now we're gonna, for this one, as you see, a difference with the two previous criteria, we don't expect any external verification, but rather the financial intermediary verifying based on the final recipient activity. Okay, so this is the key element now. And as usual, control of use of funds together with legal covenants. The verification when is in 2 steps: at signature and prior to disbursement, the control of use of funds. Okay, and can we move please to the last slide of this section? Thank you. So as I mentioned, Green ICT enabling circular economy business model. We reckon at the EIF and that Green ICT is important, you know, as a vertical element of support to many industries, but in particular to circular economy business models. So now, what's the eligibility criteria? Is the development and deployment of tools, applications, and services enabling circular economy business models. And some examples, some digital ICT tools or investments which can enter into this category. For instance, those for predictive maintenance and repair. Okay, those that help us trace materials and support future recycling. Okay, or a third one that actually facilitate reverse logistics and improve circular resource efficiency and avoidance of waste production. Okay, so that's about the eligibility criteria. And if you see now the how is very similar to what we saw in the 4.3. You know, we don't rely on external certification. We rely though on the work of the financial intermediary based on the final recipient business or project plan, etc. The rest of this measure is the same as the other ones. You know, there is the need of control of use of funds, and then the verification follows the same steps. The whens follow the same steps as the previous ones: at signature, final recipient transaction, and prior to disbursement, control of use of funds. Okay, so can we move to the next one, which we will switch? Yeah. Okay, thank you. So I take a bit of a. Okay, now we're gonna go into category 5 and category 6. What do we have in mind here in these two categories? So category 5 is about investments related to environmental impact and sustainable management of natural resources. Okay, so it's about managing in a more sustainable way natural resources, okay, and minimizing its environmental impact, okay. And there are 2 subcategories here. One on water, which we're gonna see water resources a bit more in detail into the use case because it's a bit complex. That's 5.1. 5.2 about pollution prevention and control, which maybe is more straightforward, as I will explain. And then we have category 6, which is about protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystems. So if we move on, please, to 5.1. Okay. Yeah, water resources. As you know, water is super important element in climate change. And then 5.1 is about investment in water resource management and efficiency and related technologies. There is a plethora of examples. Let me just briefly mention these 3. Okay. Investments in modernization of infrastructures to improve water conservation and efficiency. Investments in modernization of infrastructure to increment percolation, which is filtration. and retention measures, and also investments in ICT. As you see here, we have again ICT as a vertical support to climate change. Investments in ICT applications and solutions dedicated to hydrological modeling and forecasting, small water management, or to improve water quality in general. How do we verify? How do we verify this water resources section? Well, first of all, the description of investment, which is a general thing, I mean, general concept. And then where applicable, we will need, however, we will need either technical documents or we will need proofs of permits compliance with national environmental legislation. What do I mean a bit more in detail? By technical documentation, we would need to prove when there's been a water improvement in water efficiency consumption, okay, through external technical certification, or if not available, we also have the possibility to use technical documentation from suppliers, installers as applicable. Okay, so these are the two big blocks, the two differentiating elements of the how in the verification part of water resources. Okay, technical documentation on one hand, proof of permits on the other hand, and then it flows as usual. But can we move to the use case, even if we take a bit of seconds of a break, because this one is a bit complex, so we can show it there, please. Thank you. And now, thank you, Catalina. And you move to 5.1. Okay, voila. So as you see, I just want to put, can you zoom in maybe a bit? Okay, cool, perfect. So as you see, basically, there is an A of modernization of infrastructure if designed to improve water conservation, efficiency, reuse, and discharge reduction. Okay, and within A, there is such block of 8 eligible measures, but there is also a B. Can you scroll down, please? Reduction of runoff, increment of percolation and rotation measures, and another 7 measures, okay? And then we have C, okay, support for more precise management of irrigation that results in water savings and efficiency with 3 measures, so to speak. And finally, last but not least, ICT applications, okay? And then if we move to the how, can you? Thank you. So as you see, there are different boxes, and I will stop here for a sec. There are different boxes for different things. No? So for A, for subcategory A of 5.1, there is a type of verification that other than the description of investment, we need this external technical documentation, external certifications to improve the improvement in water efficiency, consumption, etc., or technical documents from suppliers, etc., or proof of compliance with relevant certification scheme when needed. Okay. For B, however, is lighter given the nature of B. It's only the description of investment. For C, can you scroll a bit? Okay. For C is the proof of permits, compliance with national environmental legislation, okay, including, not limited to, documentation prepared by hydrologic planning engineers, etc., or certificate of national water regulatory authorities, etc. Okay, so as you see, it gets, let's say, a bit more complex. So some of the measures are, let's say, require an additional layer of proving mechanisms. Some others maybe not, but as you see here in the use case, is more detailed, and the web tool actually will show you in detail how this is done in the web tool as such. Can we move back to the PowerPoint? Okay. Good. So this is a bit. Let me finish with 5.1. Please, can you go one step? Thank you so much. So as I said, depending on the stream we follow, 5.1a, B, C, or D, we'll need to present some things or some verification on the how, and therefore the when also changes, will change for each of them. Okay, because prior to disbursement, other than the control of use of funds as usual, where applicable, we will need to present the technical documentation, and where applicable, we will need to present the proof of permits compliance with national environmental legislation. Okay, so this is it. Can we, thank you, Katerina. Can we move? Okay, pollution prevention and control. I think this is more straightforward. It's basically investments in reduction, control, and prevention of pollutant emissions into air, but also noise reduction. A few examples, not exhaustive. The exhaustive list is in the use case. Investments, for instance, that substantially reduce air pollution. So investments that reduce the emissions of ammonia, NH3, methane, CH4, and also any gas that has well that puts into the atmosphere this amount of particles per million. Okay, but also we have the stream of investments in industrial noise abatement, such as acoustic enclosures, acrylic glass, noise barriers, etc. So 5.2 is all about pollution prevention in all ways, into air and noise reduction, basically. How do we verify? Well, description of investment as usual, technical documentation as applicable, that is a bit more specified in the use case, and control of use of funds as usual. And the when for this measure follows the same logic. At signature and prior to disbursement, the novelty technical documentation were applicable. Can we move, please, Katerina? Okay, sustainable forests and other climate mitigation investments. What do we mean here? We mean investments in nature-based solutions or the financing of enterprises operating in sectors that do provide nature-based solutions. What do we mean here in practice? We mean investments or enterprises that operate or provide services in areas such as landscape, green spaces restoration and management, green buildings, sustainable tourism, and nature-based solutions for health and well-being. So as you see, it's all this bunch of green and nature-based solutions, okay? And then also the advisory part, also a vertical component, advisory part of services such as urban greening design and planning, landscape architecture, or water management in general. How do we verify here these eligibility criteria? Description of investment and control of use of funds as usual. And the novelty here is that we will request a self-declaration from the final recipient stating that the purpose of the transaction or its core business contributes to the protection, conservation, and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystems. And the when part is pretty much the same as we've seen already. Can we move? We enter, yeah. Now we enter what we call the eligibility as green investments in agriculture and forestry. Okay, and there are two eligibility criteria here. Okay, 7.1, which is about sustainable forests. And we'll see more in detail what do we mean with that. We mean afforestation, reforestation, forest rehabilitation, etc., and investments in the development or adoption of sustainable and organic agricultural practices. Okay, can we move please to 7.1? Thank you. Sustainable forests, no? So what do we mean with sustainable forests? Sustainable forests, as I briefly said, are all those investments in afforestation, reforestation, forest rehabilitation, restoration, including related equipment, as well as sustainable forest management. And in practice, some examples, as I said, no, investments in reforestation, afforestation, such as nurseries, or urban or roadside mini forest. That's one example. Another example are investments in forest protection or restoration, rehabilitation, and deployment of sustainable forest management practice, including equipment and technologies. The list is more extensive in the use case, but we'll leave it here for the moment. Okay. Now, on the how, as you see, we have the description of investment, which we've seen before, but now, I mean, we also need this description of investment, let's say, compliance documentation with the definition of sustainable forest management as established in the Pan-European Framework of Forest Europe, and control of use of funds, as we have seen already. And the verification, the when part is the same as the previous ones we've seen. No? The simple two-step verification, final recipient transaction at signature, the purpose of final recipient transaction at signature, and prior to disbursement, control of use of funds. And if we move, please. Okay, sustainable and organic agriculture or agriculture practices. As you know, agriculture is a fundamental element also in climate change. So what do we support here? What do we look for in this eligibility criteria? We look for investments in new or existing sustainable and or organic primary crop or existing sustainable animal production activities conducted by certified operators or in supporting businesses to convert to organic and also sustainable certified production. The use case is pretty extensive. I will just mention some examples of investments to be supported through this one. Okay, pest management practices, agroecology practices, precision farming, including nutrients management plan or circular agriculture, and non-traditional crops, including, among others, algae, proteins from insects, use of fish and animal nutrition. Okay, now on the how, business plan, what do we need to verify? Business plan for implementing new measures, expansion of or convention to organic or sustainable production. So the financial intermediaries will need to verify this business plan, okay, and control of use of funds, okay, and then for the when, the purpose of the final recipient transaction must be checked at signature as usual, and prior to disbursement, control of use of funds. And now I will just finish with the last two slides. Yeah, so we have a small part of the, well, one last criteria in the sustainability warranty for social accessibility investment. Okay, for social accessibility investment, which is 8.1. Can we move already to 8.1? Okay, so 8.1 are investments that enhance accessibility of services and that enhance or that create products and infrastructures to develop assistive technologies, as well as for making organizations and the premises and its premises accessible for customers and employees with disabilities and or an impaired function. So what we have here, as you see, is all these social accessibility criteria in mind. Okay, when that's what we had in mind when we designed it, and we see here some examples, you know. For instance, examples are investments that introduce and enhance accessibility features of mainstream technologies and products, like computers and phones designed for people with disabilities, investments of SMEs, small mid-caps that provide accessibility services, okay, and investments that improve accessibility of the facilities of SMEs, small mid-caps, including buildings and digital tools. Okay, so these are examples, and here the verification is quite straightforward. It's description of investment and control of use of funds, and the when is also quite straightforward. Signature, the purpose, and prior to disbursement, the control of use of funds. And I think with this, I'm done with my part, unless colleagues want me to focus on any criteria in detail. Well, actually, I will switch now to Roman. Right, Roman?
Yes. Thank you, Jorge. And Katerina, if I could ask you, please, one last time to give me presenter rights. Thank you. And back to my browser. And unless EIF colleagues start shouting, I will assume that everybody can see my screen. So I will now go to the sections that Jorge took us through and show you a couple of measures there. So for example, let's click here for climate resilience. I'm not going to click on all of them, but let's click on climate resilience, sustainable use of materials, maybe water resources. Okay. So let's click, for example, on the investments that contribute to the circular economy transition. As you see that there is no no calculator sign here, which means that in this case, the tool will not be actively assessing eligibility or the impact that this investment measure could have. I guess I never explained why there is such a dual function of the tool between different investment measures, why in some cases the tool is able and in some cases is not to assess eligibility and to assess the climate impact. And the reason is just the level of standardization of technologies for investments in energy efficiency, renewable energy, etc. Those technologies or those assets are standardized enough that with a reasonable amount of assumptions, we can create calculation methodologies and impact assessment methodologies, which can then produce these eligibility confirmation results or impact estimation results. For other investment types, which are a little bit more heterogeneous, where the variability is greater, we are not able to, at this stage, we are not able to develop an IT system, an automatized system which can deliver the same function. Now, this does not mean that with time we will not be able to perhaps add this more sophisticated functionality to some other measures, even if such functionality is not there at this time. But this is what we have been able to develop at this stage, and going forward we will try to improve and to expand. But this is the reason why you do not see impact assessment and eligibility assessment in every single investment measure. So in those cases, what do you actually get? Well, what you get is a transposition of the use case documents eligibility criteria. So in this case, investments contributing to circular economic transition. First, you have some general description about this type of investment activity or economic activity, and then you get information about the eligibility requirements themselves, and this is word for word transposed from the use case document. So this should be nothing new to you, and I will not go into reading individual eligibility descriptions. I mean, you can do that with the use case already today, and then later on in the next weeks you can do it also in the tool. So this is what you will get in this particular measure. Let's go back and let's do something in water area. Okay, and for example, water conservation, modernization of infrastructures to improve water conservation, for example. Again, not much for me to cover here. You see here the eligibility description as it is transposed from the use case document. So nothing too fancy, but we still hope very much that having it all in the same place in this themed way, where you can look at eligibilities per individual investment activities rather than looking for them in the longer use case document. We still hope that this will be of use and value and benefit to you as the users. With that, I will close my last part of the Sustainability Guarantee Tool demonstration and back over to EIF colleagues.
Thank you very much, Roman. Good. So we reached the Q&A section. If you are all still alert and paying attention, we highly appreciate your patience so far. We know that some part of the eligibility criteria can be quite technical and not easy to handle. So we highly encourage you to reach out to your relationship manager every time you have questions on specific cases or when you have doubts on how to perform the assessment and all that. We will do our best to cover all your questions and support you during the implementation phase. Thank you very much for all the questions received on the chat. We will select just a couple of them to answer now. However, we will revert with the Q&A document to be sent to all participants. So hopefully we will not leave any question unanswered. Okay, so let's maybe start with some questions related to the tool, since we have Roman still here on the big screen. There were questions related to, well, the date when it will be launched. You already mentioned that it will be in a couple of weeks, but maybe you can give a bit more insights on on how the tool it will be available to the user. Meaning, if it needs to be paid in order to use it, if everybody will have access to it. Yeah, if they will need sort of a user or a password, and also maybe to present it in parallel a bit with the EIB green checker, if there is anything that they need to be aware of, given that we do have a number of intermediaries that are using also the EIB green checker.
Sure. Thank you, Raluca. And yeah, these are very good questions, actually. I should have covered at least some of them in my previous interventions. So I'm truly grateful to whoever asked it. The Sustainable Guarantee tool, once launched, will be available to EIF financial intermediaries and to all market participants or any other stakeholders with internet access. So there will be no registration, there will be no fee, there will be no payments. It can be used free of charge. There will be no login needed. So nothing of that sort. It is absolutely freely available and accessible to anyone with internet access. Of course, it was developed with EIF intermediaries primarily in mind, specifically EIF intermediaries implementing this specific product. So this is what the tool was built on and based on. So this is what the tool does. But we do think and we do hope that perhaps this sort of streamlining of sustainable financing can be useful to other market participants as well, and it can be available. Therefore, it is available to other actors. I should also say that while the primary user group is envisaged to be the financial intermediary staff themselves, we do foresee that in some cases, perhaps intermediaries will prefer that for at least maybe some of the investment measures, the assessment is already done by their potential final recipients, so by the loan applicants themselves. And there is nothing in the structure or in the functionality of the tool which would prevent that. So subject to the business needs and business practices of the intermediaries, I think that this is absolutely fine as well. So again, the tool was developed with EIF intermediaries implementing the Sustainability Guarantee portfolio product in mind. Potential final recipients are obviously also able to use it, and anybody else out there with internet connection can use it as well. And for all these market participants, the tool is available without registration, without login, and without any fees, free of charge. Why it is available free of charge is because it was funded from the European Investment Advisory Hub. So again, thanks to EIB Group and European Commission funding mandate that allowed us to develop it in such a way without charging any fees. And now to the last part of the question on the green eligibility checker. The green eligibility checker, which and I've seen in the questions that some of you are already familiar with it, which is great, was developed for and based on the green eligibility criteria applicable for EIB intermediated debt products such as MBILS, that is multi-beneficiary intermediated loans, or other EIB intermediated finance products. So EIB Green Eligibility Checker is based on EIB Green criteria. The use case document, as agreed with the European Investment Fund and the Commission, is slightly different. There are some other eligibility criteria in the use case document, and for that reason, we have developed, let's call it an adaptation of the Green Checker, and that adaptation is the Sustainability Guarantee tool. Now, what are the differences or what are the commonalities? The differences are stemming from the slightly different eligibility criteria in the use case versus in EIB's green eligibility table, and the commonalities are the assessment methodologies and the impact assessment methodologies. So, if the user is assessing a photovoltaic measure in either tool, they're going to get the same result. If the user is assessing wall insulation or something else, I don't know, some other renewable energy product or industrial energy efficiency measure, boiler, for example, they're going to get the same results in both tools. Where the results might differ is where the criteria are a little bit different. So if one institution requires slightly different eligibility requirements to be confirmed, then obviously the tool must be adapted to it. So my word of advice would be, if you're implementing sustainability guarantee product, then obviously the sustainability guarantee tool is the right tool for you. If you're implementing an EIB product, then the green checker is the right tool for you. Hope I didn't cause more confusion than clarity. But over back to you, Raluca, in either case.
Thank you, Roman. Good. Then we'll go to the next question. I'll just read it as it is. So it was a question related a bit to the documentation and governing the process. We have familiarized ourselves with the documents contents and would like to receive precisely more information about its nature. So it is just an introduction in paper with example, or it is contractually binding document for performing the mentioned checks. So it's referring to the use case document mainly. So as we were mentioning at the beginning, the eligibility criteria of the sustainability guarantee, it's covered by the use case document in principle, that it's a binding document to be followed by all the FIs that will implement the product. The use case document, it's linked to the guarantee agreement, so it is mandatory in all the details that it contains. The eligibility web tool is just a transposition of the use case document that has the purpose to support the FIs in the assessment of the eligibility. It can be useful for certain criteria, as you saw across the presentation today, and as Roman was mentioning already. However, it is not necessarily mandatory. We just encourage you all to use it, since it simplifies the assessment. And for certain criteria, as you saw, it's just a transposition of the wording that you see in the use case document. So in the end, the tool doesn't perform any type of assessment, so it doesn't really help the process too much. It just brings the full list of criteria in the same place, so for you will be a bit easier to follow the information that it's available. So yeah, as I said, we do encourage you to use it as much as possible, at least for the criteria where the tool does perform an assessment, because it helps with the reporting, it helps with the calculations, it helps to provide several examples and so on, and to really tell you what is eligible and what it's not. Then there is a particular question, maybe we can take it now, for the criteria 1.6, meaning the environmental certified enterprise. If the ISO 14001, it's also considered. Diana, do you want to cover this one maybe? We cannot hear you, or at least I cannot.
Yeah, thanks. Sorry. Good. So unfortunately, whenever we have a list, so for example, when we talk about the prices, about the certifications, what we have in the use case and also what is transposed in the tool, these are closed lists. So basically, only the ones that are specified there are eligible. So in the case of the certification, in the case of the eligibility that you were mentioning, Raluca, we have the ISO 50001, 50004, and the EMA certifications, and these are the only ones that are eligible.
Okay, thank you. And also there was a question if we have a company that it's both eligible under sustainable enterprise and under sustainable investment, if it can be eligible under both. I mean, here we do differentiate between sustainable enterprise criteria and sustainable investment criteria. The SME can fulfill criteria from both sections. However, only one is sufficient. So that will be like the short answer. Then there was another question also getting back a bit to the tool, if we have any plans to put to translate the tool in several other languages. We do plan to provide the tool in several other languages. However, for the moment, it will be launched only in English, and we will do our best to provide translation at a later stage. And then another question. What do you mean by ancillary activities? Do you take into account services activities such as installation and maintenance services? Diana, you want to cover this one?
Yeah, sure. Thanks a lot. Well, with regards to ancillary activities and services, you will see throughout the use cases document, whenever these are eligible, they are flagged. So for example, if we take the renewable energy activities, there you have the installation expenses, the grid connection cost, for example. If you take the energy efficiency, then again, you have the installation. So installation will always be eligible, and the related expenses to such installations. Then for the energy efficiency, you can also have the technical consultations like energy consultants or the cost of the energy performance certificates. Then for SMEs, we have the accredited energy audits that can be included there, or energy performance contracts. So we encourage you to look, they are flagged within the use case document where ancillary activities are eligible and what we mean by that. So, and hopefully that can help. Thanks.
Thank you. So great. Thank you once more to all participants. I think we will stop now, but as mentioned, we will revert with answers to all the questions received so far. For any additional support, just to repeat myself, please remain in touch with your relationship manager. You'll also have a contact from the EIB Advisory Hub to help you with questions on specifically on the tool and the functionality of the tool. So, so you, at least from our end, we will try to provide as much support as possible. We will also revert with the presentation, and we'll make sure you are all informed when the eligibility tool is live and publicly available. So yeah, thank you very much.